Union Station, Chicago, a bustling transit hub where hundreds of people hurried through the platforms, each lost. In their own journey, the loudspeakers echoed with boarding calls. Trains came and went in a rhythmic flow, and the ever-moving crowd filled the station with an energy that was both chaotic and familiar amidst the sea of hurried commuters. Eleanor Carter, a 70-year-old retired teacher, stood still alone. Figure in the crowd, she clutched her sleek brown handbag, a birthday gift from her son just a week ago. To Eleanor, it was more than just an accessory. It was a piece of home, a reminder that even in a station full of strangers, she was never truly alone. Unbeknownst to her, three men a few meters away had been watching her. For some time, their eyes scanned the crowd before settling on Eller's handbag. It looked expensive, and more importantly, she was an elderly woman, an easy target for a quick snatch onto a job. Across the station, Detective Samuel Brooks stood with Blitz's powerful but currently suspended K-9 partner. They had been ordered to stay out of any cases during the suspension, and if Blitz made another mistake, it would be the end of his career. Though forbidden from intervening, Blitz couldn't take his eyes off the crowd. His instincts as a police dog told him something was off. Even if something was about to unfold, Blitz was not allowed to act. And then it happened. Eleanor walked slowly toward the waiting area, completely unaware of the three men closing in on her from behind. Sorry, lady, but we need this more than you do. Before she could react, one of them grabbed her handbag, yanking it forcefully. She clung to it desperately, but another man seized her arm, pulling her backward. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just give it up. The third man hissed, his eyes darting around nervously. Blitz froze, his ears twitched, his breathing quickened, every fiber of his being screamed at him to act, to do what he had been trained to do. But the shadow of his suspension hung heavy over him. One wrong move, and it would all be over. Was the risk worth it? His gaze flickered to Brooks, searching for permission, but deep down he already knew the answer. Eleanor was in danger. He couldn't stand by and do nothing. Brooks saw the struggle in Blitz's eyes. He placed a firm hand on the dog's head, a silent command: not now. Blitz's voice was firm but low. Blitz trembled, his gaze fixed on Eleanor. The elderly woman fought back, holding on to her bag as if it carried the most precious memory of her life. Let go of me, Eleanor cried out, but she was too weak to resist. Then, without warning, one of the men shoved her hard to the ground. Eleanor let out a sharp cry, her head striking the cold, hard floor. Litz couldn't take it anymore. Suspension, rules, consequences, none of it mattered before Brooks could stop him. Blitz exploded forward, tearing across the station. The first attacker took the full force of Blitz's charge, stumbling backward and crashing to the ground. The second panicked, releasing Eleanor's arm. The third reached into his pocket, but as his eyes locked on a Blitz's piercing stare, he froze, breath hitching at that moment. Blitz wasn't just a suspended police dog. He was a warrior, a guardian. Aloud whistles sounded as station security rushed in, prompting the attackers to scatter into the crowd. Blitz remained still, muscles tense, breathing heavy. He knew he had broken the rules, but as he looked at Eleanor lying on the ground, but alive, he knew he had done the right thing. Eleanor was taken to the hospital shortly after the incident, her head injury not severe, but leaving her dazed and suffering temporary memory loss. Meanwhile, on social media, videos and images of Blitz spread like wildfire. The nation praised the heroic K-9 for protecting an elderly woman from harm, but no one knew the truth. Blitz had broken the rules one by one. All videos featuring Blitz were mysteriously taken down, erased, as if someone was deliberately covering up the event. While Eleanor was lucky to be alive, as she checked her bag, her breath caught in her throat. Something precious was missing. Her late husband's necklace, a cherished keepsake she had carried for years, was gone. A wave of deep sorrow washed over her. She didn't care about anything else. She just needed to get it back. Desperate She pleaded with the police to investigate, but when they asked her for details, Eleanor couldn't remember. Anything useful do you recall who took? Can you describe any of the men? But all Eleanor could do was shake her head. In frustration in the chaos, she hadn't seen who had snatched the necklace. Couldn't recall their faces or even pinpoint the exact moment it was taken. A crushing sense of helplessness settled. And I know I had it, but I can't remember. What happened? Eleanor whispered, her voice trembling with frustration and despair. The police promised to look into it, but she could tell they weren't taking it seriously. Her heart ached, not just for the missing necklace, but for the helplessness of not being able to do anything to help herself. Her mind was blank, but deep inside, a growing unease gnawed at her. Why couldn't she remember? Why had her necklace disappeared? And most importantly, why did this attack feel like more than just a random robbery? After being discharged from the hospital, Eleanor still couldn't recall what had happened during the attack. The emptiness in her memory only made her more desperate. Meanwhile, Blitz was ordered to return home for the remainder of his suspension. Brooks received a strict warning from his superiors: if Blitz makes another mistake, he will never be allowed back into the force. Blitz didn't fully understand human rules, but he could sense Brooks' tension. At the same time, police were investigating a high-profile case involving a dangerous criminal organization. The only known connection to this organization was a group of street criminals they had previously hired, and on the day of Eller's attack, intelligence report suggested that a group of these hired criminals had been seen at Union Station. The question was clear: were the men Blitz took down the very criminals working for the organization? But there was one major problem: no one could remember their faces. That's when Brooks realized Blitz might be their own. Chancey proposed to his superiors: Blitz can identify these men if we let him take part in the investigation. He could help crack the case and prove that he still belongs in the force. The Hups agreed, but with one condition: Blitz can join the investigation, but you, Brooks, cannot. Brooks knelt beside Blitz, placing his hand gently on the dog's head. Hey, buddy, this time you have to go alone. Blitz looked up at him, eyes filled with uncertainty. Rook sighed, his voice calm but full of encouragement. I know you want me by your side, and believe me, I want that too, but this is your chance to prove yourself. Blitz's ears drooped, his brown eyes glistening. He nudged his head against Brooks' chest, letting out a soft whimper. Brooks chuckled, ruffling Blitz's fur. Come on, don't make this harder for me. This is your shot. Blitz stared deep into Brooks' eyes, conflicted. Then, after a moment, Blitz took a step forward, only to turn back, gazing at Brooks longingly. Blitz couldn't leave without him seeing this. The higher-up side then finally relented. Clearly, this dog won't work without you. Fine, you both can join the investigation, but if you fail, neither of you will return. Brooks grinned, looking at Blitz. Proudly, looks like we're back, buddy. Blitz wagged his tail furiously, as if he had been waiting for this moment all his life. The investigation was officially underway with approval from their superiors. Blitz and Brooks officially joined the investigation, tasked with identifying the three assailants from Union Station. The investigation began with their only lead, Blitz. They brought the K9 back to the station, hoping he could pick up the scent of the attackers. Even after several days had passed, Blitz sniffed the ground, his sharp eyes scanning the area as he moved through the platform, his nose working overtime. Then suddenly he froze, his head lowered closer to the floor, sniffing intently at a specific spot. Brooks knew that look. What is it, buddy? He asked, keeping his voice steady. Blitz lifted his head, then, without hesitation, started leading the way. He took off down the platform, weaving through the station's crowded walkways, past rows of seats and ticket booths. The team rushed to follow, trusting his instincts. Then, just as quickly as he started, Blitz stopped abruptly near a pillar by the exit, sniffing the ground. With great focus, Brooks knelt beside him, scanning the floor, and that's when he saw a crumpled piece of paper, partially buried under the dust and debris. He picked it up and unfolded it. A torn airline ticket stubbed. The team immediately ran a records check and soon discovered that 3 individuals had booked a flight out of the city that same day using fake identities. The findings confirmed their suspicions. The attackers had fled right after the incident. We need to find their destination, one of the agents said. If they've left Chicago, we have to track them before it's too late. As if sensing the urgency, Blitz stood tall, ready for action. Brooks looked down at him with pride, gently ruffling his fur. Good job, Blitz. It's now. Let's finish this. The dog wagged his tail, eyes filled with determination. The chase was officially on. Using the torn airline ticket, the investigative team quickly traced the suspect's flight, discovering that they had landed in New York without hesitation. Brooks, Blitz, and the special task force immediately set off following their trail. Upon arriving at JFK International Airport, Blitz was brought to the security checkpoint where the suspect had passed through earlier. The K9 lowered his head, took a deep sniff, and moved cautiously, his nose skimming the floor as he tracked a familiar scent. Then suddenly Blitz snapped to attention. Ears perked and rushed toward one of the boarding gates. Brooks and the team hurried after him, their hearts pounding. They arrived at an international flight gate, and there one of the suspects was about to board a plane, attempting to flee the country. Blitz growled lowly, his sharp eyes locking onto the man. The suspect looked up, and his face drained of color. His eyes darted toward the exit, his body tensing for a split second. Before he bolted, he shoved past a row of passengers, sending luggage tumbling to the floor. But he had made one crucial mistake. He had underestimated Blitz. The K9 was already in motion, weaving through the crowd with predator-like precision. Before the suspect could reach the gate, Blitz leapt, knocking him off balance. A second later, Brooks and the task force closed in, pinning him to the ground. The second suspect had hidden inside a restroom, thinking he was safe, but Blitz wasn't fooled. He sniffed his way straight to the door, barking sharply. Within moments, officers stormed in and apprehended the second man. The final suspect, the most dangerous of the 3, sat calmly in the VIP lounge, pretending to be an innocent traveler. But Blitz knew better. He approached slowly, sniffing the air, then let out a loud bark right in front of the man's security. Personnel moved in, immediately searching his bag, and found a concealed firearm. All 3 suspects were arrested on the spot, and during interrogation they couldn't hide the truth. We were just hired for a different job, one of them admitted. Then, why did you attack the old lady at the station? An agent demanded. That was random. We just wanted to grab whatever valuables we could. The suspect sighed, knowing there was no point in lying. The attack on Eleanor had never been part of their original plan, but that single mistake led to their downfall. With this confession, law enforcement traced the case back to a larger criminal network, opening the doors to a much bigger investigation. Blitz hadn't just solved a case, he had become the key to bringing down an entire criminal organization. Brooks knelt beside him, ruffling the dog's fur with pride. You just saved a lot of people today, buddy. Blitz wagged his tail proudly, his eyes gleaming as if he knew he had done the right thing. After the case was successfully closed, Eleanor received a call from the police, informing her that they had recovered her missing necklace from the confiscated stolen goods. She rushed to the police station the moment she saw the necklace. Her hands trembled with emotion. I thought I'd lost this forever, Eleanor whispered, her voice breaking. She gently ran her fingers over the pendant, memories of her late husband flooding back, bringing tears to her eyes. When Eleanor saw Blitz, she knelt down softly, stroking his head, her gaze filled with gratitude. You're an amazing boy, Blitz. If it weren't for you, I would have lost the most precious thing in my life. Blitz licked her hand gently as if to reassure her that everything was all right now. Meanwhile, Blitz's story became a sensation across social media. Millions of people shared photos of the heroic kind, calling him America's hero under growing public support and recognition of Blitz's outstanding bravery. His suspension was reevaluated. Finally, the decision was made. Blitz and Brooks were fully reinstated, their suspension lifted completely. When Brooks heard the news, he couldn't hide his smile, kneeling beside Blitz and wrapping an arm around him. "We're back, buddy." Blitz wagged his tail excitedly, his eyes gleaming with happiness. Soon after, both were invited to join an elite K-9 training program where they would work alongside other skilled teams to take on even greater missions and save more lives. As Brooks and Blitz prepared to leave for their next assignment, Eleanor stood near the police station's exit, watching her two heroes with deep gratitude. Blitz suddenly stopped, hesitating before following Brooks. Instead, he turned back, his deep brown eyes locking onto Eleanor's gaze, and it wasn't just a simple glance, it carried something more profound. Eleanor knelt slightly, reaching out to stroke his fur one last time. In his eyes, she saw a silent message, a quiet plea for her to take care of herself. Blitz tilted his head slightly, as if making sure she understood. A gentle breeze swept through, but Eleanor remained still, her gaze following Blitz as he prepared to depart. Then, as if saying one last farewell, Blitz wagged his tail softly, his eyes warm yet determined, before turning back to Brooks. Eleanor smiled, her eyes glistening but filled with peace. She whispered, "You've done well, Blitz. Go now, continue protecting this world." Blitz didn't reply, but in the way he dashed forward, she knew he had heard her.